Before we begin, let me give you a quick summary to draw you in. Today's story is about a quiet afternoon that turned into one of the most unexpected moments of my teaching life. The day my student sat beside me in the cafeteria and revealed something that changed the way I understood him and myself. It's a moment filled with calm tension, gentle emotion, and the kind of truth that sneaks up on you. Tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching us today? I love seeing how far our little community reaches. And if you enjoy stories like this, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. It truly helps. Now, let me take you into the story. The cafeteria was unusually quiet that day, the kind of quiet that makes you notice things you usually overlook. The soft hum of the vending machine, the distant clatter of lunch trays, the dust-speckled sunlight stretching across the tables like warm fabric. I had slipped into a corner seat with my cup of tea, hoping for a few minutes to breathe after a long morning. I was halfway through my first sip when I noticed him approaching. Daniel, one of my seniors. Tall, usually confident, but carrying a different energy today, like he was moving through thicker air. He hesitated before sitting, as if waiting for permission, though he didn't say a word. I nodded toward the seat across from me. He settled down slowly, clutching his backpack to his chest. His eyes kept drifting around the room before coming back to me, unsure, searching. I'd seen that look before on students who were trying to find the courage to speak. "Everything all right?" I asked, keeping my tone gentle. I'd learned over the years that kindness opens doors that questions alone never could. He took a breath, the kind that shakes a little at the end. "Can I tell you something? Something I haven't told anyone?" There was a pause, not uncomfortable, but not easy either. I could feel the weight of whatever he was holding. The air between us seemed to settle, like it knew a story was about to unfold. "Of course," I said. "Whatever it is, you're safe here." His shoulders lowered, just a little, as though the words gave him enough room to breathe. He looked down at his hands, tracing invisible lines on the table. His voice, when it finally came, was quiet but steady. I think I need help understanding something about myself," he said, and I didn't know who else to talk to. The cafeteria around us continued its slow rhythm, but for me, the world narrowed to that small table, his uncertain expression, and the responsibility settling gently on my chest. I wasn't sure yet what he wanted to share, but I could sense its importance. It wasn't fear he carried, it was hope. Fragile, careful hope. I leaned forward slightly, letting him know he had my full attention. "Take your time," I said. "I'm here." And that was when his voice softened even more, carrying the beginning of a truth that neither of us expected that afternoon. Daniel's words hung in the air between us, delicate and unfinished. I could tell he wasn't ready to reveal everything at once, so I waited, letting the moment stretch naturally. Over the years I'd learned that silence, when gentle, can feel like an open door instead of a barrier. He lifted his eyes slowly, as if testing whether I was still there with him. "I don't think people see me clearly," he said. "They think I'm confident. They think I have everything figured out. But that's not really me." I nodded, encouraging him with a small smile. "Most people are carrying something unseen," I said. "You're not alone in that." He seemed relieved to hear it. His shoulders eased a bit, and his fingers stopped fidgeting. The light coming in from the cafeteria windows seemed to warm him, settling across his face like a quiet reassurance. "When I was younger," he continued, "I used to talk to my grandmother every day after school. She'd listen to me for as long as I needed. She always said I thought differently, felt things more deeply, said I thought different my age. I didn't read than other kids my age until she passed away last year." His voice wavered, not with grief, but with the tenderness of remembering someone who had loved him well. I felt my own throat tighten. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "Losing someone who understands you. That leaves a space nothing else quite fills." He nodded, looking down at the table again. "That's exactly what it feels like. Ever since then, I've tried to talk to people, but it's like they only hear the surface of what I'm saying. I guess I've been scared that if I tell someone what's really going on inside me, they won't take me seriously." I folded my hands around my cup, the warmth seeping into my palms. "It takes courage to say what you're saying right now," I told him. "And I'm honored you chose to tell me. Whatever you're carrying, you can share it at your own pace." He studied me for a moment, his expression thoughtful, almost searching. "You're different," he said quietly. "You actually listen. Most adults either rush to advice or tell me I'm overthinking everything." A small laugh escaped me, not at him, but at the familiar truth of it. "Listening is part of my job," I said, though I knew it was more than that. "Sometimes listening is an act of care." He gave a tired smile, the kind that shows relief rather than joy. "I guess I've been afraid of disappointing people," he said. "Afraid of not being the person they think I am." There was a sincerity in his voice that caught me off guard, an honesty unfiltered by the usual defenses teenagers wear like armor. Sitting across from him, I realized he wasn't seeking validation. He was seeking understanding. The cafeteria had grown slightly busier, the sounds building around us, but somehow our table still felt like a quiet corner untouched by the noise. The moment carried a softness, a truthfulness that made me more attentive to my own thoughts as well. "Daniel," I said, "everyone reaches a point when they start to see themselves more clearly. It can be uncomfortable, even confusing, but it's part of growing. What matters is that you're not facing it alone." His eyes softened and something in his posture shifted, like he was beginning to trust that the path he was trying to understand didn't have to be walked in silence. "There's more I want to tell you," he whispered, "but I don't know how to say it yet." I reached for my cup again, not to drink, but to give him time. "Whenever you're ready," I said. "I'm right here." And in that quiet, I could feel the story deepening, moving toward a truth neither of us had yet spoken. The afternoon light in the cafeteria had shifted by the time Daniel finally spoke again. It stretched longer across the floor, softer now, as if giving us a little more privacy. He took a slow breath, the kind someone takes when they're gathering scattered thoughts into something they can carry. "I think what scares me most," he said, "is that people expect me to be strong all the time." His voice was steady, but there was a tiredness beneath it, the kind that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from holding things in for too long. I'm supposed to be the dependable one, the one who doesn't make mistakes. I felt a familiar ache at his words. I had lived that pressure too, different circumstances, different expectations, but the same weight, wanting to be everything for everyone, and somehow forgetting yourself in the process. "I understand that more than you might think," I said. "Sometimes we're so busy carrying other people's expectations that we forget to ask ourselves what we truly need." He glanced up at me, surprised, as though the idea hadn't occurred to him. "Was it that way for you too?" I hesitated only long enough to decide how honest to be. "When I was around your age," I said, "I felt like I had to be the calm one in my family, the one who didn't make trouble, the one who held everyone together. It took me years to realize that I was allowed to have my own thoughts and fears." Daniel listened closely, not with the impatience of youth, but with the attention of someone who was gathering pieces that might finally make sense of his own puzzle. "What helped you figure it out?" he asked. "Someone finally told me that strength doesn't mean being silent," I said. "It means being real. and real doesn't always look perfect. A quiet settled between us. Not heavy, just thoughtful. The cafeteria had filled and emptied again around us, waves of students passing by, but somehow our conversation stayed uninterrupted, as though the world was giving him the time he needed. He tapped gently on the table, a rhythm that matched the rise and fall of his thoughts. "There's something else," he said. "Something I haven't told anyone, not even my friends." I leaned in slightly, not to push him, but to let him know the space was safe. "You can share whatever feels right," I said. He swallowed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't always understand why I feel things so deeply. I get overwhelmed, but not in a bad way. More like, everything means more to me than it seems to matter to other people." That was the moment something clicked for me. Not a revelation about him, but a recognition of that kind of heart, one that notices details others overlook, one that carries emotions like delicate threads instead of heavy chains. "That's not something to be ashamed of," I said, keeping my tone warm. "Some people move through life quickly. Others move through it thoughtfully. There's value in both." He nodded, looking relieved but still uncertain. I was worried it made me strange. "It doesn't," I said. "It makes you human, and aware, and capable of understanding things others might rush past." He absorbed my words slowly, as though testing their weight and finding comfort in them. His posture relaxed for the first time that afternoon, and a quiet gratitude passed across his expression. "I think talking to you is the first time I've felt understood," he said, "like someone actually sees what's underneath everything." His words touched me in a way I didn't expect, gentle, sincere, and without any hidden meaning. Just a young man searching for clarity, and a woman who remembered what that search felt like. The last of the daylight reached through the windows then, brushing the table between us with a warm glow, as if marking the moment. And I realized something. This conversation wasn't just changing him. It was changing me too. The next day, I found myself thinking about Daniel long before the cafeteria came into view. The conversation from yesterday lingered in my mind, not as a weight, but as something quiet and steady, like the hum of a familiar tune. I realized how rare it is to connect with someone in a way that feels unhurried, honest, and entirely present. When I walked into the cafeteria, he was already there, sitting at the same table. This time, he carried a notebook instead of his backpack, and there was a small, tentative smile on his face. There was a small, "Morning," he said. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I replied. This had the day before. It felt like a beginning rather than a continuation. "I wrote some things last night, about how I feel, about yesterday. I wasn't sure I could put it into words, but it helped." I gestured toward the seat across from me. "I'd love to see it, if you want to share." He opened the notebook slowly, almost reverently, and began reading aloud. His words were raw and thoughtful, revealing his inner world with a clarity I hadn't expected. I listened quietly, occasionally nodding, letting him know he was being heard. When he finished, he looked at me, a mix of relief and vulnerability in his expression. "I don't think anyone's ever really listened to me like that," he admitted. "You've always had a voice," I said softly. "Sometimes people just need a little time to find the courage to use it." The cafeteria buzzed around us, students laughing and calling to friends, trays clattering, the usual midday rhythm. And yet, in that little corner, the noise faded. We didn't need to fill the silence with words. The conversation, the sharing, had created a bridge that neither of us wanted to break. Over the following weeks, our conversations continued. Sometimes about schoolwork, sometimes about books or music, sometimes about life in general. Each time I noticed subtle changes in him, the way he carried himself a little lighter, the quiet confidence growing in his gaze, the willingness to share small thoughts without hesitation. And in turn, I noticed changes in myself too. I realized how deeply meaningful it is to be trusted, how much I could learn about patience, empathy, and the courage it takes to truly understand someone else. One afternoon, as we packed up our trays, Daniel paused and looked at me. "Thank you," he said simply, "for listening, for not judging, for letting me talk." I smiled, feeling a warmth that comes from witnessing someone step into their own understanding. "You're welcome, Daniel, and thank you for trusting me." As he walked away, I watched him blend into the crowd, and for the first time, I felt a quiet pride, not the pride of achievement, but the pride of connection. We had shared a moment of honesty, of patience, of understanding, and it had transformed both of us in ways that neither of us could have predicted. Walking out of the cafeteria, the sunlight felt softer, more meaningful, as if it had noticed the small shift in the world between those four walls. Life had gone on around us, as it always does, but the space we had created remained, silent, steady, and full of possibility. And I carried that lesson with me, that the simplest gestures, listening, being present, allowing someone to be heard, can leave a mark far deeper than we often realize. Moments like that, fleeting as they seem, are the ones that quietly shape who we are and who we can become.